Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mention It All podcast. I am excited to be joined today by a very funny comedian, writer, actor, and most importantly, the host of Bravo's Love Hotel, Joel Kim Booster. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. I'm so happy to be here.
We're like wrapping up the Love Hotel season.
I know.
Already.
It went by so fast. In a blink of an eye, I feel like it happened and it's done now.
I'm so curious for you. So you guys filmed this back in the fall.
Yes.
Now it's been coming out for the last couple months. What has it been like for you? Obviously, you've been on lots of different shows and movies and things, and it takes a while for stuff to come out. But for a show like this where you're hosting and being yourself, what is it like kind of watching it week to week?
You know, it's crazy. I will say I felt like when I was there, I was like, oh, I'm so immersed. I'm so a part of this. It's like I know everything that's going on. And then to watch it back, I was saying to someone earlier, it's like watching your kids on the nanny cam after you've gone out for the night, because I'm suddenly now realizing what was going on while I wasn't around the entire time. And so it's fascinating. It's a lot of fun. It gives me a lot of joy watching it because I'm getting that peek behind the curtain a little bit.
It is fun. I feel like some dating shows, it feels very regimented of like, you only see each other at these prescribed times where it's like you go on the date, like on The Bachelor, it's like they don't hang out together. Yeah. And I kind of like on Love Hotel that it feels like everybody's just kind of like hanging out at the hotel. You can go to whoever's room you want. It's like
very much unstructured free time for a lot of them. And I think like that's part of the best part is some of the moments with the ladies where they're just kikiing and like gossiping about their dates is some of the best, I think, stuff on the show. Because, you know, I think one of the big draws and great things about the show is that you get to see these ladies not so much in conflict with each other, but really like supporting each other and like rallying behind each other. And you don't get to see that on even like an Ultimate Girls Trip sometimes.
Yeah. So. I kind of like when the show was first announced, it's like, oh, they're going to be like fighting with each other over guys and blah, blah, blah. And like, there's like little moments of that, but I feel like all of them kind of weren't taking it too seriously to the point where it was like really getting feelings hurt. Like
I definitely think there is a makeup of this show casting wise where there could have been a lot more conflict between the ladies. Yeah. But I think that the ladies that they cast, I think just were pretty naturally like, you know what, we see what this is. We see who sort of makes sense for each other, and we're not gonna like necessarily step on each other's toes when it comes down to it.
Backing up a little bit, we'll get more into Love Hotel. I want to talk about your Bravo origin story as Joel. I know you've been watching Housewives and everything for a really long time. What was the first show that you kind of found and became attached to?
So in high school, I watched when OC premiered, and I was like sort of lightly into that. It was just mostly like on while I was doing homework. But it wasn't until I was in college and got really into New York and Jersey that I really became sort of obsessed with the world of Bravo, because I think like New York was really when they figured out the early formula in a big way. You know, like early OC, it was like a docu-series. You know, they barely interacted with each other.
Vicky's
it wasn't
work.
until Tamra's, until Bass Lake, and that Tamra sort of invented Housewives in the way that we understand them now, in a big way. And so, until that happened, and until New York happened, and Teresa with the table flip, that was probably when I was like, okay, I'm on board for this for life.
That was when the ecosystem kind of started to like flesh out a little bit. And it's like, they're kind of always on.
The table flip, I mean, say what you will about Jersey or Teresa, the table flip is probably the first big iconic Housewives, like in terms of like the grander pop culture landscape. Like everybody knows about that table flip. I was in
high school when the table flip happened, and I remember this is like the gayest thing that I've ever done. Maybe. We had a courtyard in our school where you could eat lunch, and like I didn't even watch Housewives at the time, but I made my friends film me like reenacting the table flip at lunch, and I'm like, why did I do that?
Yeah, if it was reaching little gay boys in wherever you grew up, like it was going to stand the test of time.
I was watching like YouTube, like I don't think we didn't have cable, so I was watching like YouTube clips of like what is this text?
Yeah.
So then have you stuck with it all the time, or have you kind of dipped in and out?
I've definitely dipped in and out. I think like there was like a moment post-college where I didn't have a TV, and this was like before streaming was like super accessible for everybody, that I definitely fell off a little bit. And it wasn't honestly until I think I was in New York and I started listening to Bitch Sesh, a competing podcast
love
about
them.
housewives, and that really like drew me back in. Was like having, because I started when I was doing comedy open mics. All my friends are these grody straight guys, you know? So like I didn't have any friends who were watching Bravo either. And so when the podcast came along, it was like, oh, finally I have like friends that are, involved in watching the shows with me. And so I definitely dove back in probably around whatever season they went to Ireland on the OC.
Oh, yeah.
That was when I started back up again.
Like Megan King
Edmonds, Detective Megan King Edmonds.
A Biden for a moment.
Yeah. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Such a blip in time of Joe Biden being at Megan King's wedding.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I hope she's well.
I hope she's well too. I hope she's still solving mysteries. I hope she's still putting clues together, you know.
I saw in an interview about Love Hotel that you compared doing Love Hotel as a Bravo fan to kind of going to like Disneyland,
the Star Wars immersive experience, staying at the Star Wars hotel. Yeah, as a Star Wars fan, it definitely was. I mean, like it was so crazy to have been watching these women since I was a teenager, to then like having them like feet away from me, and it was just very, very bizarre.
What was so you've been on, Watch What Happens Live, you've like been around events and stuff. What was your kind of like Bravolebrity experience IRL prior to this show? Like, do you have any good interactions?
Yeah,
I
mean, the entire Marks family came to the premiere of Fire Island. And
of course they did.
Seth Marks has like held my hands and gotten weepy and told me how important that movie is to him, as the father of a gay child.
Ally.
Ally down. And Meredith has always been super sweet and very supportive of me as well. And so that was probably like the most like definitely like impactful interaction I've ever had with a housewife before. I've been on Watch What Happens Live with a bunch of them before that too, so that was definitely sort of bigger interactions. I've been on with some real big personalities.
Watch What Happens Live is so funny because it's like they're in like season mode, and I feel like when housewives are like in season, it's like they've trained for this, and they have their talking points, they have their narrative. They're living in their world.
They're selling. They are selling.
And when you're like paired with that energy for Watch What Happens Live, you're kind of just like along for the ride.
Exactly. And you know what? This is going to be the first episode I've done since being a member of the family, and honestly, I'm approaching it a little differently because I'm suddenly like, oh, these are my coworkers. I can't just be like some gay guy on Watch What Happens Live as a fan anymore.
Yeah, you're no longer just like a commentator.
No, I am. I now people are commenting on me too. So
right. The Watch What Happens Live. The audience poll can be like, did Joel do a good job?
Exactly. And so I definitely have a new level of empathy because Bravo fans, they are an intense breed of people. I am now learning. I was one, am one. But yeah, it's definitely a different level of scrutiny than I've ever gotten before.
Do you feel like, was there any like advice or any kind of like mindset that you took into this show airing versus like when you're on, like I love Loot, like you're on Loot that comes out every week, but people aren't like, oh my God, Joel was such a bitch this week on Loot.
Yeah, it's definitely like, this is my first real like foray into reality, other than like game shows and stuff that I've done
like
before.
You've been on Drag Race
and Celebrity Jeopardy winner. And but no, this was definitely a different level because it's funny, like, critiques of me before have been, they've always been personal, like especially about my stand-up and stuff like that, because that's very personal. Right. But this is different, I think, like, because I was just sort of figuring out how to do this job on the fly, as I was doing it. And so, and it was just like trying to figure out how to be me, in this new context. And so it is definitely like, it's definitely weirder to get critiques about like just my general personality rather than like the work. So yeah.
I also feel like with a show like this, it's like a fine line because it's like you want to be involved in what's happening on the show, but not like inserting yourself too much, and you want to be funny, but it's not like your stand-up special, like it is kind of like how much are we supposed to get?
Like, the other thing too is that like I was acutely aware too, even while filming it, that like no one's tuning into this show to see me, right? Like these people want to see these ladies, so I'm there to facilitate them being able to be funny and them being able to be interesting and them being able to be good TV. And so it was like I was finding myself a lot like, again, trying to straddle that line of being like an interesting, funny, personable host, but also being aware that like it's not your moment. Like you are there to make sure that Luann has a platform to be Luann at the end of the day. So yeah, it's definitely like, I think I was more successful in some moments than others in finding that balance. But yeah, it was definitely a very, sometimes scary new experience.
Yeah. You get one moment to be in a Speedo.
Yeah. Not my idea. And I knew people
I was going to ask like,
I knew people would be mad, and I was like, and everyone's gonna think that I like campaigned for this, and I did not. So it was just another producer's, I think.
You're like, great. So I love the wardrobe suggestions. What about this? Yeah. How long were you guys in Mexico?
3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks.
That's like, it's like not that long, but when you're like in that environment,
it's 3 weeks. In the same all-inclusive resort. There was no getting off of it. There was nothing around us to escape to. So like even as beautiful as it was, any place for 3 weeks with the same group of people you're gonna start going a little cabin crazy. But yeah, it was beautiful. Very like the crew was incredible. I have to say, like I loved the people that were working on that show to death. But it was hard because like, obviously like for me, like I would go in and shoot my things and, prep for whatever was coming next and meet with the producers. But all of my friends that I made on that show were in the crew. And so they were working when I had downtime. Right. So I was just like, truly, I would be, if I was not working, I was alone, like just completely alone for like
sitting
long
alone
stretches
in the VIP.
of time. Yeah, no, truly. And so I got, it took a minute, but I was able to like figure out how to do like other work while I was there. I was like writing and trying to like be productive, but it's really hard when you're just like in Cabo at an all-inclusive resort to like make yourself do anything when you're not working other than just like lie and rot in the sun.
Right. You're like, so I'm not technically on vacation, but also like, what else am I supposed to do?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's like, yeah, I've heard like people that are on like the White Lotus talk about, they're like, well, it's like really great to be there for 6 months, but also you're there for 6 months.
Yeah. It was a really relaxing but long 3 weeks, I will say.
What was I'm curious, like, obviously it's a brand new show. There's a million dating shows out there, and it feels like every show kind of has a different, almost like intent of like, how serious is it supposed to be? Is somebody getting married at the end of this? Are we just having fun? Like, what was your kind of idea of like where this show kind of falls in that spectrum?
I didn't really go in with like a ton of preconceived ideas about that because it was such a new format for this network, for these women, for everybody involved. None of us knew how it was going to work. And so for me, like it really changed depending on who I was sort of focused on that day. Like I think like it was a different show for Luann than it was for Giselle. You know, it was a different show for Shannon than it was for Ashley. And so I think like it was really about figuring out how to help once we figured out like sort of how they were going to play it. Right. I think it was easier to just sort of tailor how we would approach each housewife on an individual level, because like we knew we couldn't push Giselle too hard, but we also wanted her to have a good time. We didn't want to like let Luann completely loose off the leash, but we also knew that people wanted to see Luann off the leash. So it was like figuring out like how to keep the balance. Yeah, it's watching it week to week. It's been kind of fun seeing how each of them are having their own experience, and like, like Luann will go from being like super horny 1 minute to then being like, why don't you have a shirt on? Put on a shirt. Like the like class with the Countess thing pops out at the funniest times. It really does. And the thing is, it is in her DNA, no matter how, how many seasons of this show, how many bushes she falls in, like at the end of the day, she is still the Countess.
She's like, no, you need to be wearing a shirt. Meanwhile, Ashley, like, I really respect that Ashley has shown up and like played the game.
Yeah, and that's like
the whole time.
The thing is I think Ashley was the most ready out of all of them to like, be on a dating show. Quite frankly, like I really enjoyed Ashley a lot. Like it was nice. Like I forget that like she is sort of our longest reigning millennial housewife. OG, and you really felt I think the age gap with Ashley in this show in a more acute way than you do.
She's
on
like, can I go on Love Island?
Yeah.
She's like, they're hot.
Yeah. And so it was a lot of fun to get to see Ashley in that environment. I mean, we've seen her trapped in one of the Mount Rushmore toxic relationships of Bravo for so long, much of her tenure on the show. So it was nice to just see her get to dive into a pool of men head first and see what she came up with.
Yeah. It's tough though, because then it's like watching Wale experience that. It's like, if he had set his sights on a different housewife, he wouldn't have had to worry about that.
Yeah.
But it's like,
it's one of those things. None of the guys, and I believe them when they say this, just based on how they acted, watched Bravo,
right,
or had any preconceived notions, did not bring any baggage in with them about anything from the ladies' past. And I think Wale, definitely you feel that the most, where I think he definitely had an idea of what this was going to be and what his relationship with Ashley was going to look like on the show. And the thing is I understand where both of them are coming from. He's really into this woman. Ashley is, so stunning and so, charismatic. But Ashley's like, I'm fresh out of a divorce. I'm here to date around. I'm going to date around,
Right.
And so I think it's neither of them, I think, could ever really quite get on the same page, as much as they were attracted to each other and as much as they, clearly had a connection. I think they were there for different reasons at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. I just have to say, we keep getting the side-by-sides of Michael Darby and Ralph to prove a point that Ashley has a type. And I'm like, that's so rude to Ralph.
So rude to Ralph. So rude. And honestly, rude to Ashley in its own way. Yes, she clearly, has a type in terms of age range, but I think that's where the similarities between
Ralph is a fine-ass man.
And Michael Darby end. Yeah. He keeps his hands to himself too, which is plus.
I'm curious, we've had a couple of different housewives speak out on whether or not they were supposed to be on Love Hotel or maybe going to be on Love Hotel. Sonya's shouting from the rooftops that she's like, if I was single, I would have been there. Brynn Whitfield said last week that she was gonna do it and then decided not to do it. Were you aware of the housewife casting process at all?
They did not include me in the official casting process. I've obviously heard the same rumors that every Bravo fan on Reddit has heard. But yeah, I think it certainly would have been a very different show with either of those ladies on.
I think so.
Yeah. But hopefully there's a season 2 and maybe we'll still get to see it.
Yeah, I'm curious if you do a second season, is there anybody that's that you have your eye on?
My go-to number one answer for this, it's maybe a little boring at this point because everybody says her, but Heather Gay, I think she's given so much to the community, and it's time she be rewarded by throwing her into a pit of men on some Mexican resort somewhere. I think she'd be great. I think she's really built for the show. I think Adriana Mira from Miami, Welcome Back Miami, I think is exactly the...
She would show up in a showgirl
energy.
costume.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what people want to see.
Yeah.
I think Paige and Lindsay, they're done with Summer House, or Lindsay less so than Paige, but I think it would be interesting to see those two together on a show like this for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential to look beyond just housewives.
Right. Well, and they're telling me now that I should start thinking about men from the Bravo universe. That would be interesting. Now, I don't know that I want to see a whole season of men on that show, but it would be interesting to maybe see a Shep Rose in the mix or something like that.
Yeah, it almost it's if it was 12 strangers and then 3 men that have been on Bravo before.
Right.
It's
sort of what Traders does.
Does that put them at a disadvantage? Do we know too much? I don't know.
Yeah, we certainly know a lot.
It depends on the guys. Some of these guys have been out on the town a little bit more.
Right. So I don't think we'll be seeing and the thing is some of the best men are already married, some of the best, male presences. I'm very much get the man off the TV. I'm not watching that whenever I see a man on Bravo, but I don't think we're going to see Jax anytime soon on Love Hotel. It would be a great way to get him into actual real rehab, though, is just tell him that he's showing up for Love Hotel.
He's on Love Hotel, but there's no cameras and it's 90 days long. Maybe someday.
Maybe someday. I think that's the way, though. Yeah.
No, I think the whole thing with reality TV is that like casting is truly so important.
That's where it starts and ends. The success of a show, really, I think,
Yeah. So, I mean, whoever's in charge of that, it's like, it's tough. And there's no way to know exactly how people will behave in certain situations. So it's like, you could have somebody on paper who's like, oh my God, I would love to see her dating. This would be so fun. And then they get there and they're like, this is uncomfortable for me.
I will say, I think like, yeah, it was interesting too, because as much as these women have been on TV for like 10 years plus, this is a very different way to shoot a television show for all of them.
For sure.
Like it was much more camera time than they're used to. Because on Housewives, they're used to getting a call sheet. And like, this is the scene we're shooting. This is what we're talking about this scene. Like they get, and this was very much like, the cameras are around from the moment you wake up till the moment the cameras go down and you're in bed. But then there's still, the set camera, so it was just a lot for them, I think. And it was interesting to see how each of them reacted differently to it. I will say the one person I think who acted exactly in the way we expected them to act was Luann.
Right.
I think Luann, we knew, what you're getting with Luann. And boy, did she deliver.
Yeah, I think most women that have been on a show like this, or like Housewives for like more than a couple of years, kind of almost like are playing the game mentally a little bit, where they're like, okay, like I know how this is gonna look, I know what I'm gonna how this is gonna come across. And
I'm not gonna name names, but I think some of them are very used to self-producing a little bit on their own franchises, and that was not something they were able to do as easily with this show.
Yeah. Well, I thought it's been interesting in a couple of the like key ceremonies where it's like they're almost like strategizing. They're like, okay, we'll give the key to Ashley so she can have I would like to see like every woman for herself a little bit more.
Yeah, they were definitely playing nice for sure. They were very much were. And I think it would have been interesting to have Brynn and Sonia on that cast and see how much they were able to play nice, would have been a very different dynamic, I think, between the ladies.
For sure. So now the season is like wrapping up. What was your how did you kind of see it ending, and do you feel like there were like emotions that surprised you, or the situation with like Shannon and Ralph is a lot?
Earl,
yeah. Yes, Shannon and Earl.
Yeah.
So many men's names
To keep in mind. Yeah, I will say, the finale I think snuck up on all of us, the people who were there, and I think I think all just assumed that they had sort of unlimited time to make these decisions and make these connections. And there's definitely moments in the finale that people will say it's for TV, but I think, when it's your life and when you are making such a big decision in the moment, I think it really does become quite real, quite fast. And so there's definitely, I think the moment with Ashley and I in the finale, she's used to being on TV, but that was a real moment of real emotion from her in that moment. And I think it was really difficult for some of these women to make the decisions that they made.
Yeah. Well, even Shannon announcing that she had invited Earl to move in with her, I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that was something that we were doing, but now it's this whole thing. And then the other women are like, that's not a good idea. Then it kind of ends up not being a good idea.
It's interesting. And, Clock, too. I don't know if you saw the OC trailer, but there are a couple of Love Hotel gentlemen that show up in the OC trailer for this upcoming season. Okay. So that's fun. I won't say who.
A little Easter egg.
Little Easter egg. Go back and pause the screen a couple times. You'll see some familiar faces.
I love that. The universe just keeps on growing. I want to get your opinion on a few Bravo happenings that are in the universe right now. How do you feel about Rachel Zoe joining Real Housewives of Beverly Hills?
I mean, it seems appropriate. I loved the Rachel Zoe project when I was in college. That was sort of the heyday. Some really great shows were on Bravo during that time. And so I think it's nice that she's coming home, We haven't seen her on TV in a while. I'm interested to see she hasn't been on reality. The reality TV has changed a lot since the Rachel Zoe project.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested to see if she's going to be quite as messy as she was on her show originally, or if she's because I think the internet has changed the way a lot of these people approach being on these shows, and they're very aware of the narrative and the image and things like that. And she was never super concerned with being likable.
Yeah.
And that's what unfortunately, like, we need a couple of women like that on these shows to keep things, the conflicts alive and interesting. And I think like that's the problem with some of, especially Beverly Hills, is I think they're very aware of the narratives that they're crafting and the images that they're building. And so it will be nice. Hopefully she brings a little bit of chaos.
Yeah, I could see, like, because I feel like that was something that you got with Lisa Rinna a little bit, where she was like, I don't give a fuck if anybody likes me. And maybe Rachel kind of has that.
Yeah, they're all a little afraid, I think, on that show to be, yeah.
She's getting a divorce, so.
And I can't wait to have a front row seat to that.
Okay, how do you feel about reportedly Monique Samuels being a friend of on Potomac next season?
Between that and Phaedra coming back this season, I just Bravo's capacity for forgiveness is breathtaking, and I think it's something to be admired. And I didn't have strong feelings about Monique either way when she was on. I definitely think that franchise needs some love and some help.
Right now. Well, they're in an interesting position because, Karen's occupied elsewhere. Right. And Mia's not coming back. So
Mia's not coming back. And unfortunately, this really does close the door on Candace coming back. I love Candace. I am a Candace stan.
Yeah.
Down. And so it'd be interesting to see what direction the franchise takes. I'm jazzed that Stacey's coming back, though.
Same.
She will rise.
She
will rise.
I keep forgetting that Stacey Rush exists because the show's not on. I've only known her for one season, and then I'll just kind of remember in the back of my head. I'm like, we're in a good place.
We're in a good place. And I'll say hot take. I don't think she paid TJ explicitly to be on the show.
Okay.
I do think that they probably had a conversation where she was like, being on the show will be really good for you.
Yeah.
But do I think she explicitly said, I will pay you X amount of money to be my boyfriend on the show? No, I don't think that
That's kind of where I landed too. Because to me, first of all, he would have produced the receipts.
Yes.
And second of all, it's just that's so...
Where's the Venmo?
That's
TJ?
so intense.
Yeah.
Literally be
and to lie about it so... the thing is she's either a full-on lunatic sociopath to lie like that.
Yes.
And I'm not counting that out as a possibility by any means, But for her to so adamantly be like, I did not pay him.
Yeah.
And then for them to produce that clip of him, it's just I don't think it's as cut and dry or black and white as either side wants it to be.
I don't believe she's a good enough actress to come across that stunned and upset at the reunion.
And he's clearly pressed because of the way he came off on the show and was going scorched earth. And I think it's really unfortunate. And I like Stacey. I think it's unfortunate that she had to go through all that with someone who was so clearly not a great guy.
Maybe Stacey needs the Love Hotel.
You know what? You heard it here first.
She needs gentlemen being introduced every 3 days.
Yeah. I mean,
I wish that for her.
I do too. It would have to be a sort of special born again version of the show, I think, though.
Probably. How are you feeling about Summer House now that Paige is leaving, Lexi is leaving? We don't know what's happening with Lindsay.
It's tough, right? I think the Summer House is ready for a Valley-esque spinoff because I don't want to see these 40-year-olds on vacation. That's it's sort of the appeal of the show is becoming a little less pronounced as the older they get. I don't need to see Lindsay back in that house trying to juggle having a baby in the group share, but I still want to see Lindsay on my TV.
Yeah.
So they need to figure out what they're going to do on that.
I feel like we're at the fork in the road where it's we have to make the next decision. And that's the thing, when Lindsay's I've been going to the Hamptons in the summer forever, so of course I'll still be there. It's I want you to go to the Hamptons and have a nice summer and then come back and film. Not you don't need to be at the theme party every weekend.
Exactly. You do not need to be at the 19th pirate party that they have
every time they show up to the house and there's just a mountain of Amazon boxes on the porch and it's all those supplies for the party that weekend. It makes me stressed out just watching it.
I know. It's so crazy. I'm the carbon footprint of every theme party on Summer House is massive.
But there's a pirate ship. Yeah. But it's awesome. Okay, and how are you? There's a new Bravo show that was recently announced that I feel like is sort of spiritually in the same lane as Love Hotel, which is Wife Swap.
Oh my God. I mean, I am a huge swap fan. Trading spouses, like back when every network had the same version of the different version of the same show. I think it's genius. I think it's getting harder and harder with the main franchises. I think as television changes, as reality TV changes, to get them in places where they're uncomfortable and sort of like not in control. And so I think any sort of format shakeup where like you're taking them out of their comfort zone and sort of forcing them into a new situation where they're maybe not as well versed in how to control those situations, I think is going to be exactly what we want to see from some of these women. Yeah,
and I feel like that was sort of like the idea with Girls Trip that is like now I feel like evolving more into these like specific formats where it's like a Love Hotel where you're having them date, a Wife Swap where you're having them swap.
The thing about the Girls Trips too that Wife Swap and Love Hotel sort of fix is that the endings of those seasons were always sort of like because there was no clear ending. It was just the end of the trip, and so like you weren't really being able to see full arcs play out in an interesting, satisfying way with some of the girls' trips, because a lot of the conflict would just die out because it's like we never have to see each other again. We're going back to our own cities, etc. And so you're still getting a lot of like the interest of seeing Luann and Shannon interact on Love Hotel outside of their own franchises, but there is like a more built-in arc of like, okay, so we're getting to follow them with these relationships and then we get to see if they are going to continue it. And so that's like a nice way to sort of land.
Yeah. Interestingly, it's like the biggest impact of Girls Trip was kind of just like reinvigorating some of these women's TV careers. That it's like Gretchen's coming back to OC.
Gretchen's coming back. I mean, I will forever mourn the season of Girls Trip that we may or may not ever see, because I am desperate for an Alex McCord return to television. I need it. I need it in my veins. Like Alex McCord slept on, not given the respect on her name as she deserves.
I think Dr. Alex McCord.
Oh my God! And look at me.
She got a PhD.
Contributing to the disrespect.
No, it is crazy. And that's the thing. It's like when you have somebody like Phaedra, who it's like she was on Girls Trip and then she was on Traitors and she's kind of like worked her way back up the ladder to
she was on probation.
The mothership. It's like Alex McCord could be like, I don't know, running the UN by now or something if that Morocco season hit.
Get her on Traitors. Honestly, she'd use that new degree, figure it out in a day, have those traitors out of there.
I do believe she would make some smart choices. I don't know. It's been such a long time. She's in Australia.
She's living her best
life. The kids are grown, pretty much.
Speaking 5 languages. It's,
Anytime I see a photo of those boys, I'm like, what planet am I on? It feels
You're
so
in
strange.
Brooklyn, baby. That's it. You're in Brooklyn.
Are you excited for Gretchen to be back on OC? It's been such a long time.
It's been such a long time. I guess I am to some degree, but like Alexis's return was kind of a flop. So like I just want if they are gonna return, I need to see like growth or evolution. I can't just see like sort of the same conflicts play out the same way that they played out when she was on. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But I definitely I'm more excited to see like Jen and Katie, honestly, than I am about Gretchen.
Yeah, OC has like in the last couple seasons really like built up this strong base in the cast, and now I'm like I actually like don't need it. I don't need like the extra accessories of like, oh, and like maybe we'll have Gina Keogh pop by. I'm like, right. Okay.
Yeah, it's like fan service, but for who?
Yeah. The fan service, I think it can really be effective, but it has to be like.
Yeah, because was Gretchen anyone's like deep favorite?
I feel like she was when Housewives, maybe like 8 years ago or something, I feel like she was one of the most kind of like trolled housewives online. Because people like hated Slade and people thought their relationship was fake and that they would never get married, which they haven't. But like I don't like. I feel like she was one of the OG like.
Well, I mean, like the way Tamra and Vicky and everybody else really treated her was really when you started to see the franchise shift in the more drama focused interpersonal conflict sort of lane. And so it'll be interesting because she hasn't really been on since the show has gone through like 2 different evolutions, I feel like, in terms of what kind of show it is. And so it'll be interesting to see if she's still playing by, 2008 rules, or if she's also been paying attention and watching the show evolve.
Yeah, recession
sort of,
indicator.
Exactly, recession indicator.
Okay, the last thing I want to get your thoughts on. Brynn announced this morning that she is not coming back to Roni.
Oh no,
it's a shock. I'm sure you're processing. You've spent a lot of time with Luann. Where do you see the future of New York? As a Housewives franchise.
I mean, I think we need to point to Atlanta as a successful soft reboot of a franchise right now. I think Atlanta was really in a slump for the last couple of seasons, and we saw now with this new cast, like a mix of old and new, I think is the way to go. And I think most of the new hires on Atlanta are full home runs, and I think Shamia especially is like such a great little bridge in between the old and the new. What a revelation. I think she's so great. And then to have like again Portia and Phaedra back too, it's like you still have the fan service, 2 real fan favorites that people want to see on their TV are back, and then you surround them with really compelling newbies. And so I think that would be how I would do it if I was looking at New York. I just don't know what a good mix of old and new looks like for New York.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is it's like at a certain point you have to just like make a decision, and it's a leap of faith and whatever. But it feels like Atlanta, they kind of have cracked the code a little bit. And even with OC, I mean, bringing back Heather and then bringing back Tamra, like they kind of had to like build back up the core. And I feel like with New York, that's kind of where they're at, where it's like, okay, like we've got a lot of pieces to play with, like what's the right
they have a deep bench to pull from if they wanted to. So
I mean, Kristen Taekman, she's on the bench.
People forget
Kelly
that
Ben-Simone.
Kristen Taekman was first chair her first season, okay? And if she hadn't been pushed out the next season,
at least I'm pretty,
then I think she would have had a much longer tenure on that show than people
give
her credit for, because she season 6 is a tough season for as many people know, but lots of iconic moments, and Kristen was a part of that. So I think, justice for Kristen Taekman.
Justice for
I'll
Kristen
say it.
Taekman.
I'll be the only one saying
I wasn't expecting that to be where we landed today, but justice for Kristen Taekman. She's doing great.
Yeah, she is.
She's doing great. And Love Hotel, it's a lot. Maybe, no, I think she's still married.
She's still married.
She's still married. She shouldn't go on the Love Hotel.
No.
I don't want to be like starting rumors that anyone should go. That's like the new way to
We should actually, what they need to do next season is not Love Hotel, but they need to do Temptation Island. Bring on some of these married housewives. Give their husbands the opportunity, the platform to, and them the platform.
And you're like, I will generously offer to host that.
Exactly. I think it's $1 million idea, Andy.
That, oh my God. Did you see like the clips that went viral from, I think it was like Temptation Island, Spain or something?
The guy on the beach.
Screaming down the beach. Oh my
God.
Can you imagine?
That is what we'll get with Joe and Melissa on Bravo's Temptation Island.
I'm going to get him, a freaking animal.
Temptation Hotel, yeah.
Okay, you heard it here first. That's, honestly, make it happen.
I mean, we're halfway there with wife swap, so why not just go the full...
Wife swap, love swap, hotel, housewives.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm all for it. Everybody should watch Love Hotel.
I think so, and I think the premiere just ended. You can binge it. It's a really easy watch. It gets better and better every episode.
It goes down easy, but there's also like enough substance to it that you're not just like,
there's something
why
to
am I
bite
watching
into,
this?
Yeah.
I love it. Well, congrats on the season, and thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And until next time, be cool. Don't be all like uncool.